on a whim by Professor Nikhila and myself in June 2020 during the lockdown. Since then, TFO has had uninterrupted discussions on films from all over the world every Saturday at 9 p.m. on Zoom. It is a group of film scholars, researchers, students, teachers, and anyone passionate about cinema. It has been our practice to invite people to select and lead the discussion of the chosen film, which we watch in our own time and place. On some occasions, filmmakers, editors, and cinematographers have also joined our sessions. Aparna Sen, Girish Kasarwalli, and Adur Gopalakrishnan, to name a few. We have held film festivals such as East European, Iranian, Women Cinema, and others. In the month of June each year, to celebrate our anniversary, we hold a smartphone short film making contest for students and a lecture series in various university departments. Today's discussant, Professor Ajanta Sircar, does not really need introduction to members of TFO. She has been our consistent supporter and has seldom missed a session. Yet, it is my privilege to introduce her to you. Ajanta is a professor at the Department of English, School of Social Sciences and Languages, Vellore Institute of Technology. She completed her PhD from the University of East Anglia, Norwich. She has won numerous national and international awards, such as the Commonwealth Fellowship 1993, to most recently being nominated as Visiting Chair, India Studies, Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., by the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. She is the author of 2 books, Framing the Nation, Languages of Modernity in India, published by Seagull Books UK in association with Chicago University Press, January 2011, and The Category of Children's Cinema in India, published by Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla, in October 2016, released as part of their Golden Jubilee series. She has also recently co-edited the volume Contagion Narratives, Society, Culture and Ecology of the Global South, published by Routledge 2022 with Dr. Shrijit Verma. Welcome to you, Ajanta, and to all of you here who have logged in. Over to you, Ajanta.
Geeta, thank you for that very warm welcome. For me, it's been, my highlight of the week, most weeks, joining your platform, and I've enjoyed being part of TFO so much. So it's also really my pleasure today to introduce a film that I have really loved. Now, when Nikhila suggested, can I talk about the film? The one condition I said was that I can only speak on the film as a novice. So I am neither a specialist on Spanish history, nor even in terms of Spanish cinema. And I'm not sure if we have had a Spanish film festival, but we've certainly seen Buñuel, we've seen Carlos Saura, and Professor Ranadev, I remember, made reference to this film while he was discussing the Saura film also. And I think Eddie and Saura had also the same producer and certainly the same actress in Anna Torrent. So Erise is of the generation of Saura, and so my comments in some ways I'm overpowered by the film, and there are too many things that I want to say, but I'm sure all of you have many more points of interest. Now, the reason I chose the film, of course, is that it combines, in a kind of really, as I said, still overpowering way, 2 of my abiding interests in life. That is psychoanalysis and the world of the child. And I'm always amazed at how the Spanish masters, are able to almost sort of, to me, seem to be able to catch the intensity of Freud's vision of what the child is capable of. the intensity with which the child can feel the passion, the murderous rage, the passion, and in this instance, to be haunted, by the spirit of Frankenstein. Uh, so before I start, I just want to make one or two prefatory comments, which I hope you might find of use. Now, already beginning with group psychology and the id, and also, of course, because Freud was himself a Jew living through Hitler's time, he knew well how groups or collections could transform into murderous lynch mobs. And this transformation happens almost instantaneously. And the figure and the deep psychic investment on, in a sense, a leader or a figure around which these groups form. Groups are also murderous because, in some ways, when one is part of a group, one is able to let go of the restraints of quote unquote civilized life. And very quickly, Freud would draw the, kind of parallels, the two kind of really chilling examples of this kind of group, apart from the nation state, were, of course, the church and the army. And already beginning with Pinuel, and the film here is, I think, Virginia, not the one that we saw. What is also incredible to me is how the Spanish masters, even as Franco is alive, are able to use symbolism, metaphor, critiquing the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, of course, was one of the main supporters of Franco, and they thought they were putting in, Franco was putting in order actually the mayhem that had been set in place by the Popular Front. So in this film, and I'm sure all of you have noticed, many of the other point I want to make is that none of these things are my independent insights. This film has been such a landmark. People, all of you probably know by now, many consider it one of the greatest Spanish films ever made. Kurosawa thought it was one of the greatest films of all times. So also columnists in The Guardian, New York Times, etc. So the points I'm making are absolutely, kind of not mine. They're points that I've collated over many, many years of watching the film. I don't know how many times I've seen it. So what is, for me, as I said, so critical is how they use metaphor to talk about religion. Here also, of course, the Republican soldier is in the end found in a derelict temple, and the temple is derelict for a certain reason. So the film begins already in 1940, and the opening scene is once upon a time. But this once upon a time does not take us to a fairy tale utopian land. It is 1940 when Franco is actually kind of still purging his enemies. So the film was released in 1973. It's set in a desolate Castilian village, and all of us know that very well. And then, of course, the movie, the self. So it's Frankenstein and Jimmy Wales's version of Frankenstein. So as I said, since so much has already been said about the film, I just confine myself to little vignettes, right? So this, so all of us also, of course, know now that the beehive is a metaphor for Franco's pain. It's a kind of mindless, productive action, and as you know, the annihilation of anything that is different from what defines the hive's sterile activity. Here, sterile, of course, does not mean unproductive, since producing is precisely what the bees do. And there is never a lack of work to be done, because a convenient amount of honey, production of a convenient amount of honey economically is what justifies the very existence of the hive. But it's sterile to the extent that the hive escapes the idea of full liberty. It is based on a very rigid and hopeless stratification in order to assure that labor is done, quote unquote, efficiently. And the majority of the bees are, of course, not allowed any more life than is necessary by this law of iron necessity. So the father is himself a beekeeper, And it is almost as if he's trapped in the beehive himself. The reference is not only to Matterlink, people have seen references to many poets, etc. And there is a kind of, a transparent window between the father as he sits at night writing his philosophical treatise and the horrific but fascinating activity of the beehive that forms the object of his attention. So, what is the order of the beehive? It is, as I said, to annihilate anything that is not useful. And this is, of course, related to that beautiful scene of the mushrooms. Now, there is one mushroom that's of a particularly dangerous variety. It's dangerous because it cannot be made into a docile omelette. And to the extent that that variety of mushroom cannot be made into a docile omelette, it must be stamped out. It's almost as if he's caught within the the relentless law of the beehive and he cannot escape. Who is it who can escape? And what provides the means of this escape? Cinema, Frankenstein, and the child. So there are too many, again, as I said, so in terms of, filmmaking style, and in terms of the films we have seen, this really reminded me of, Nuri Ceylan and Once Upon a Time in Anatolia. And because there's so much I want to say about Erise, he made this he made Close Your Eyes last year, that's 2023, after a gap of almost 30 years. And there also Anna Torrent begins with I Am Anna. And it is about a filmmaker who's looking for a lost film. And there's also a body to be recovered. So it's about memory, forgetting, repression, and so many other things. Nevertheless, getting back to the law of the beehive. So the law of the beehive is that you must be useful to what is already defined as order. Frankenstein as a monster defies this order. And again, all of us know how many readings Frankenstein has been harvested with, or how many readings one can actually give to that great text. Is it science fiction? Is it about childbirth? But in the James Whale's version, the significant fact is that Frankenstein is also mute. In Mary Shelley's version, Frankenstein is demanding his rights, and he begins with he's deformed because he does not look like what his creator looks like. He wants a mate. And he begins his plea with the fact that it's misfortune that has made me evil. In the James Whale version, Frankenstein has even now lost his voice, so he's mute. And it's that version of the film that the two girls see. As opposed to very importantly, in the cinema hall, there are only aged people and children, no adults. And of course, while everybody is repulsed by the monster, Anna, who is innocent, not like Isabel, is very drawn to this deformed figure. And the vignette we see is that critical vignette where the huge monster plays with Maria and she's accidentally killed. So Anna knows the stakes of what friendship with the monster might involve. She's not afraid. And later that night, she has two questions that she asks Isabel. Of course, those famous lines about everything in the movie is a fake, etc. But she also wants to know, where does the monster live? And how do we find him? So Isabel makes up only the answers that she can give. And it so turns out, and she says that, you might find him in the temple. And in the temple, of course, then is a Republican soldier. And he too is killed at the end, which replicates the scene that Anna sees. However, Anna is not killed, though there is that scene of the communion when Anna is kneeling by the lake and a kind of ghost. And so the spirit of socialism, we don't know what it is a spirit. And we have to be inhabited by the spirit. Isabel tells Anna that he has no face, the monster comes in disguise. In fact, he has a face to disguise what he really is like. And it's that spirit that Anna longs to be inhabited by. And at the end of the film here, we see that she has distanced herself from the family that is completely caught within the logic of the beehive, as it were, and she is very, very deeply invoking the spirit to come and inhabit her. She's gone through what the doctor says is a traumatic past. And then, of course, all of these references to the pain, to the architecture of the house, which replicates the beehive, the father who listens to the revolutionary dialogues of the film, but is unable to get away, the fact that uh, 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 the fact that in some ways, there is also, I mean, each scene is so significant as they go through through the photo album. So the photograph that we see there is of, I'm forgetting the name. His name I think is Miguel de Una, no, somebody who was a Franco supporter. So why was this intellectual then? Why did this intellectual then retreat to the countryside? The 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 their abode now is very austere but very grand. And of course, between the two sisters, there is Isabel, who's clearly a representative of the nationalist socialist forces, uh, and the way that she tries to dupe her gullible sister, and Anna, who's the source of innocence, from which a new Spain may or may not be born. So, I think I will just stop now because, as I said, there is so much that this film evokes in me so many times, and there's so much that's also been written about this film. I would be very happy to share books, references, but as I said, Close Your Eyes was just made last year, and I think Erise made this when he was age 82. And Anna Torrent, of course, has also acted with greats like Amenebar. So there's this great tradition of Spanish cinema. And I hope that you enjoyed it. And I very much look forward to what you thought about the film as well. And really thanks to Geeta and Nikhila for allowing me to share this film with cinephiles. I think this really, for me, just being able to share the film truly has been a treat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajanta, for opening out several discussion points in the film. It is now opened for discussion. Anyone would like to come in? Ajanta, I was just wondering, of course, you spoke about the Freudian interpretation that the film opens itself to. And along with that, of course, there are strong elements, of the Oedipus complex playing out in the narrative, and also the family dynamics. The relationship of Anna with her family, and then
Yes.
the whole complexity of the familial bonds. And for most part of the time, the mother seems to be somehow, quite removed from everything, and she doesn't seem very much involved in in what's going on in the lives of the daughters. So all these things I thought were very interesting in the film. Besides, of course, its whole, socio-historical context, as you have already spoken about, the Spanish War, the trauma, and the social inequalities, especially, the poverty in the rural areas. Um, and um, and I think we can also see it as some kind of a coming of age film, where, where Anna seems, I mean, moves, from innocence to a more, a slightly more nuanced, you could say, understanding of the world and the realities around her. So these are just, some of the thoughts that come to my
And
mind.
really great points, Geeta, because the actually all the entire family really doesn't come together till about 30 minutes into the film.
Yes.
And you don't even know what's going on. And the mother's writing letters to an absent lover who's in
Yes.
exile. She goes to the train station where she makes very intense eye contact with a soldier.
With
Is
the
he?
song.
She has virtually no contact with her husband, to the point that when he comes home, he has to ask the housekeeper, is there food in the
Food.
fridge? There's only one scene where they are all together, which is the dining table, and even then they are never all together in one frame.
Mm.
So it's about the corrosiveness of Amelia as it seeps into the family. It's about a completely absent mother, a father who's drawn to pursuits because and he's fascinated by bees. For what reason? Is he because he's unable to walk up? They are landlords, so they are clearly of a propertied class, the class that would have supported Franco. So he's got in multiple contradictions, and towards the end, and I think that is what is even in this hour of film. Remember the Gita that we saw, that children are able to uh, to invoke specters in very intense ways. Anna has learned the laws of the beehive. She's nevertheless taken a chance when she goes in the night looking for the soldier, goes out to find Frankenstein again, and despite being chastened and everybody's gone out looking for her, just as they go looking for the little girl in the Frankenstein film, she remains committed to Frankenstein. So this is the not at all the kind of what shall I say, candy floss ideas of the child that we have, but
Absolutely.
a child figure that's so complex and so rich. And this is exactly what Freud is telling us all the time: the intensity of their emotions, the fact that a child is able to feel, or in their own way acknowledge desire, pain, longing in ways that perhaps we don't understand. Absolutely, they're great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to come in at this point?
Geeta, may I?
Yeah, sure. Nikhila, go ahead.
Yeah, Ajanta, thanks for a great film. Yeah, really enjoyed watching the film very much. And I was very keenly looking forward to your discussion of the film as well. Actually, when I started watching it, this allegorical level that you noted, in your opening comments, it was not available to me. So I was just watching it in terms of piecing together the film narrative in some ways. And also looking at the film in terms of other films that one is familiar with. So I'm just kind of recounting my way of watching this film. Um, there were elements of Cinema Paradiso, for instance, that it reminded me of. Also, while the children and everyone's watching the film, the shots of the film Frankenstein that they are watching, and also the shots of the faces of the audience reminded me of Kiarostami's Shirin very much. So I kind of let myself be drawn into the narrative. And as one started watching the film, of course, what you say there, the metaphor of the beehive, it's almost a stylistic patterning that comes up. Even the windows look like beehives. The light as it filters in through the windows also remind us of, I mean, is honey colored and so on. So that is there. But as you watch the film, two things were kind of unsettling for me. One is, and Geeta did mention that the father figure, a kind of, I don't know why there is something very, troubling about him, without, it actually being so. Narratively, there doesn't seem to be very much, that should trouble us about this character, but it's very unsettling right from the time we see him with his mask in front of the beehive, to the outing that he takes his daughters to, for the picking mushrooms, and telling them about the distant mountain and don't tell your mother about it. There was something very uneasy. And also, I was just wondering what to make of little Anna's running away when she gets discovered by her father, in near that, I don't know, maybe it's a sheep, it's a place for sheep. I don't know exactly what it was. So there was something, maybe menacing is too much of a big word, but there was something very unsettling about the father figure, which I wondered. And I also wondered about the nature of the trauma. What is the doctor whispering to the mother, about that she's had something traumatic? So, what was the trauma? So, I kept wondering. For me, the film's silences were very intriguing, because it says so little. It's a film that draws you in through your, like, through the emotions of Anna. But what do you make of what you see? I don't think the film obliges us with, kind of ready fixed meanings. About the allegory, I read after watching the film. I did read up a little bit, and it made sense to me. But each frame, and the family, as you and Geeta were just talking about it, the nature of the family, with yeah. So in some ways, there are such unsettling moments of the film which is inexplicable. I mean, why should it, why should a character, why is it that you can't put a finger on that character and say, okay, this is the problem? Somehow I felt that was the sense that was pretty predominant for me in the film. But thanks for a great film. We don't need all films to have ready-made answers to us. I just thought I'll flag this. Yeah, thank
No,
you.
I think, Nikhila, Erise would be so happy by your answers because he has never clarified what he meant. It's and he, for 30 years, people consider this, one of the greatest Spanish films ever made. And this is why, he reminded me of Nori Celan. You can read him in so many ways. And absolutely, I think Kiarostami also, many of these filmmakers have a kind of, a direct sort of, what shall I say, tribute to Erise. And I think also the acting of Fernando Fernand. There is a sinister element all around. As I said, so why do they show us this picture of this great, a rector, so this chap whose picture we see, we know that he's become a misanthrope. We don't know why. And the picture that we see is of this, he was a rector in one of the great universities in Spain. He was also a very important figure in the church, who then becomes who was a staunch Franco supporter and was actually there on the day that Franco took oaths. Now, there are many people here who probably know Spanish history much better than I, but I've just seen this film many times, And Erise has never explained why he showed that particular snapshot. And then is he distancing himself from his past? And why is he so fascinated by the beehives? I don't know. He's the one who cruelly pulls out the watch, to show Anna that this chap has been shot, and that I know your secret. He's also extremely cruel to Anna. So, and we never know what trauma it really was. because Anna remains committed to Frankenstein. So I think, Elise would be delighted to hear you, because this is exactly what he wanted, to just be drawn in by the film. So thanks, and thanks for liking the film. It's so wonderful
Also,
for me.
I was just wondering, about one other question, Ajanta. This is about, children's cinema. I think, you've thought long about this question of what is children's cinema. So maybe you can also tell us a little bit about how you see this film within the framework of children's cinema, or cinema with children. I don't know how to put it. So maybe I thought you could tell us a little bit about that as well.
Nikhila, thank you so much for that request. See, unfortunately, I think the very category of children's cinema in some ways sanitizes the category. See, for instance, Peter Pan. It was never actually made for a so-called child audience. It was part of a larger book, Finding It in Neverland. So the life of James Barrie. So the very constitution of this category comes imbued with an ideological overload about childish innocence, which of course Freud would question. Freud is also emphatically suggesting that the child is indeed the father of man, but for completely different reasons. For the intense sexuality that the child feels, for the intensity of the emotion that child feels. And I think, so for Melanie Klein, for instance, she locates the primitive Oedipus complex at age 6, when a child is even not able to speak. But even through the film that we saw of Saura, the child is capable of murderous rage. It is able to feel betrayal, he or she. So, and when the CFSI comes into being in India, for instance, the Bengal Renaissance provides the template. So it was so formed a book like, Alice in Wonderland. So this was about a man who took pictures of young children, a mathematician. So was it pornography? So, the fact of children's sexuality, the intensity of the child's world that Freud is laying out. So for Freud, the interpretation of dreams, in the dreams, we always go back to what he calls our infantile prehistoric past, because that is where taboos of the civilized world are left behind. Therefore, in dreams, you are able to dream really murderous thoughts. And for Freud, the deepest insight is that unless we acknowledge the violence within us, in each of us, we cannot, in a sense, deal with violence outside. And therefore, for Freud, also, laws, etc., are never going to be adequate. He was very, even, the League of Nations, he thought could never bring to an end the violence that he saw very much around him. So for Freud, in a sense, so the connection between violence internally, the formation of a group around a heroic father figure, the formation of groups that rely on primitive psychic investments of rage, betrayal, and how then especially institutions like the church and the army become displaced figures for this great leader. And I think even as all around us, so it's the great leader who defines what the monster will be. So unfortunately, for Freud, the child is the most important figure to harvest. And in the final years, totem and taboo, where he locates then a very, very difficult relationship between the child and the non-West. The Aborigines for Freud are not, it's not that the Aborigines represent the primitive of the West, but now people have gone back to that great text, Totem and Taboo, to say that Freud was struggling with precisely that stageist notion of history. And there's been an incredible lot of work that's been done in Australia, Canada, within this realm of psychoanalysis, to now look at psychoanalysis as it relates the figure of the child to the group to the nation state, underpinnings of religion, the army, and of course, as playing out now, in the tragic sort of Israel Palestine, who becomes then the victim. So, the great tributes to Freud then would be Edward Said, Freud and the Non-European, Jacqueline Rose, The Question of Zion. So there's been a fantastic tradition. And if anybody is interested, I would be very, very happy to share further references.
Thank you, Ajanta. Anyone else? Jayanto, would you like to speak?
Did you say Jayant or did you find Geeta?
Yeah, I said
Yeah.
Jayanto. Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Actually, I have very little to say other than the fact that this is a wonderful film and I really enjoyed myself. And one thing which I was reminded, uh, it's nothing very cinematic. It is not very critical, very analytical, but I was constantly reminded of the fact that cinema is essentially a visual medium, and that reminds us what you see, what you observe, what the child sees. And added to that, that there's a certain innocence about the film in which the Frankenstein's ghost and all kinds of things which sort of clashes with the stark reality of the Franco era, and the kind of arid landscape of their lives. So all these things, the first generation of filmmakers or film audiences, they would be kind of fascinated by the world that was being, opened up for them. And that would be the innocent expectations and excitement of a child, which this particular child, Anna Torrent, has been able to bring out very, very, effectively. Other than the fact that this film essentially is a reminder. This was certainly 20 years after the French New Wave, but the fact is that this is a time when big, complicated films are also being made, And so, therefore, I think that there is a deliberate attempt by the director that maybe you cannot intellectualize about cinema as much as you would like to do. Just watch it, just feel it. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what I feel.
Thank you, Jayanto. Anyone else? We have with us M.K. Raghavendra. Would you like to speak? Ajanta, going back to the metaphor of the beehive, I was just thinking that on the one hand, of course, it may, represent the very strict order and the structure of a beehive. But at the same time, given the significance of bees for pollination, it also kind of, symbolizes continuity, life, nature, and these stand in contrast to, the post-war trauma and the question of mortality, which is so, prominent in the film. So, as a metaphor, it functions in this contrasting way as well.
Sure, Geeta, and I think also for me, what is remarkable about the film still is that, as animal lovers, yeah, we like to think of the animal world as in some ways a redemptive one, no? Here, however, it's not the pollination angle that's even focused on. They just have to get the honey.
Yeah.
Here, it's a very, very strict, regimented idea of what should a bee do. And the bees have a very, very rigid stratification, and there's no way that you can get out of it. So, and also, the reference to the cat, where Isabel pretends. So the references to nature, exactly as Nikhila pointed out, all are kind of menacing all around. Because of course, the spirit of Franco and the degeneration that I guess, although at this point Franco is dying, so the evocations of nature are also not happy or evocative in that sense, as we understand them today. There's one task, and as soon as you do that task, then you're not required anymore. So that is what to me was, if the film is remarkable in so many ways. It doesn't reflect on the pollination angle. So I hope Raghavendra sir would, he also likes the film, so he's here. I hope he's going to make some comment as well.
Anyone else would like to come in with a question or a comment? Tarkeshwar, would you like to say something?
Yeah, since there is a silence, can I?
Yes,
Can
yes.
I?
Faniraj, please go ahead.
Yeah, one or two lines what I was supposed to say, because I did see this movie around say 2013 or 2014 after say 40 years of it being made. Then immediately I followed with his also. Again, there's a reversal. I mean, as Ajanta was telling, that about the child and that's also again a female child and the mother in here, and in Elsur it is the female child and the father. And again, there is already a hint in Elsur that I think 83 I mean Franco dictatorship ended, and they could talk about that. There is again a reminiscence. Again, they remember that his father's that child's grandfather was a Franco supporter and father was a Republican. So and there is a movie star who's the sweet of his father, and again the movie comes there, and the same theme and the connectivity about the movie, the emotions, the politics, all comes together as if in a surrealist drama. I mean, surrealist drama unfolding from the dream. So if you see back to back the spirit of BEEHIVE and also, you see that the iris is trying to tell more pronouncedly his surrealist memories about the Frankenstein. I mean the Franco years where Frankenstein is revoked, and here again the Spanish Civil War, which is surreal, is revoked in terms of films and love. But again, after 50 years, in 2023, I did see his latest film, Close Your Eyes. So, Close Your Eyes is I mean, if you connect it to the Spirit of Bayou of 73, I suppose, 73, El Sur of 83, and Close Your Eyes of 2023, I was astonished by the fact that Close Your Eyes is all about lots of memory, completely erased, memory completely erased, and a father figure becomes a kind of a child who doesn't remember his past, a kind of a past which was a very, he himself is an actor, and his daughter, after growing up, she has also doesn't know because she has disappeared. All of a sudden, his friend and the director tries to bring back the memory through screening of his last film directed by his friend, so that they want to bring back that memory, the memory which is erased from his that particular protagonist and his daughter, and a connect between father and daughter was supposed to be made through the screening of the film which the father last acted. So that memory was supposed to bring back both father's memory and connect it to his daughter who is grown up now. So if you connect these three films, Spirit of Behemoth, Elsur and Close Your Eyes, then I was wondering what is the connect? What Iris is trying to tell us that in 73 he is trying to bring back the surrealist memories of Civil War and what remains, and then then trying to interpret through Frankenstein. Then Elsur, where post Frankenstein era, where the Spanish film has become more open, he could at least hint about the surrealist memories of war, where his father is a Republican who, after that defeat, will never go back to South, and said that his grandfather was a Franco supporter. After the defeat, he never wants to go back, but still have a memory with the film, with the actress, the star being his sweetheart. So like that, but when you come to Close Your Eyes, everything is erased. They want to uh, uh, through the film they want to bring back the memory, so that as if memory is the testament to history and we should preserve it in some way, which is erased now, but somehow we should bring back to both father and daughter. So I was wondering what is the connect? What is the connect? And thanks to Ajanta, she connected it to that Freudian inner violence that I think arise is somehow. I mean, I have to make a sense out of it as Ajanta is making sense of it through Freudian inner violence coming out, and the surreality of the violence within us being played out in history. So that's a very interesting fact which Ajanta made. So I wish Ajanta, if she will connect it to Spirit of Bahins, Yalsur, and if she has seen Close Your Eyes, can she make a connect and can comment on it? Because I was very enlightened by her. So I was trying to make a connect, connecting the dots, but her explanation about Freudian inner violence is making a sense to me. I have to reconstruct.
Funny, sir, it's too large a question. I can't connect it, but I've seen the films and loved it. And if you remember, Close Your Eyes begins also as Anna Torrent, and she begins with I Am Anna. So if many people have seen these, it's like a trilogy and he's coming full circle. And so you must know, right? He was among, I think, a several Spanish filmmakers who signed this open statement about the Israel-Palestine conflict, and that there must be a humanitarian corridor for aid and so on. So I think, tropes of history, and also what role can we ever recover history? How does history uh, is it the law of the father? And when the law of the father is lost, what do we recover? It's too big a theme for me to make the connection. And I'm just telling you what other people have said. And they have not, talked about Future of an Illusion. That's kind of my interpretation. But clearly, Erise is himself very deliberately using the same names, the same dialogues, because he also wants to connect the film. So I don't know, you've probably seen many, many more connections than I do, but you're absolutely right that in the first film, so there is a spirit that she wants to be haunted by. By the time you come to Close Your Eyes, it's sort of memories lost, and do I remember something? And the girl is now grown up. So there is a circle there. I really don't know how to do a close reading of it, but I will read up, sir, and hopefully we will have a discussion when we meet someday.
But interestingly, the concern is again you said Israel-Palestine conflict. Interestingly, Close Your Eyes comes with I think he is a Jewish person. I don't. I mean, who acts in that film? Uh, he's a Jewish man who is bringing back his daughter who is lost in Japan. I mean, I was wondering what I mean, he is talking only about the film, or he is talking something else. And again, as you said, I mean, I was not knowing that while watching that film, Close Your Eyes, I was not knowing that they have signed Israel and Palestine this thing, peace process. I mean, urging for the peace. But now all of it, and it's wonderful that Iris makes those statements about social politics around us through a kind of a surrealism of a history. I mean, a history hidden in our unconscious, and he wants to bring it back again and again through this kind of surrealist algorithm. That is wonderful. So I was trying to connect this dot, and your analysis did give me some hints. So I am wonderful. Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the
Any other comment, question? Yes, Tarkeshwar, you have unmuted. Yes, please go
No
ahead.
one else. I thought I will. I'm not an expert on either the Spanish history or trying to place this particular film in the context of the other films of the filmmaker. So what I'm trying to do is to understand this particular film itself. Uh, One is to see it as a kind of uh, there is a kind of pragmatism that pervades the entire system that exists in the uh, society that is shown to us. Especially the father articulates it very well, uh, both in terms of the structure and the hierarchy of the BI, as well as in the context of the mushroom, what is useful, what is not useful, a kind of pragmatic approach. What is necessary, what is not necessary, what is useful, what is not useful, uh, and what is not useful doesn't deserve to exist. That's the kind of articulation. Uh, but within the structure, everybody has a place, but the child has a fantasy. So there's something pragmatic, and there is something fantastic, the imagination, uh, the conflict between the two. And if pragmatism is a kind of epistemological framework that we impose on the world around us to make sense of it and live by it, uh, fantastic is also a kind of epistemological framework through which we try to understand. So the process of becoming an adult, coming of age, is to suppress this fantastic and be more pragmatic. But interestingly, in this film, uh, the fantasy of the child coincides with the pragmatic or the empirical. So there is he is looking for the Frankenstein, and there is somebody there in that abundant structure. So it coincides with it. That is quite interesting. And the role of the film in all this uh, is also quite interesting. So there is something that is happening around us. So predominantly we superimpose a kind of pragmatic approach to make sense of the world around us. And then there is also an imagination, fantasy, which also corresponds to the quote unquote pragmatic empirical world around us. And when these two meet, what happens is quite interesting in that sense. So there is a society which is trying to discipline the child, and the child is trying to go out of the discipline through its imagination and the pursuit of that imagination. I think that was quite interesting. So in that sense, the film was quite interesting to me. Thank you, Ajanta, for the film and also for the opening remarks.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar, and so glad to have you on the platform. You're absolutely right, and to track back to what the point that both Faniraj sir made and also that Geeta was making, right? So, what the disastrous consequences if metaphors become literal, or if we try to make metaphors too literal, right? And also, so this is not, who defines if a mushroom that is poisonous to the human being? Does that mean it has no right to exist? And you're absolutely right. So because because the monster is so hideous, and because the little girl tells her that in the films, the principle of reality does not work because they're anyway all lies. Therefore, cinema opens up for her a realm of possibilities whereby she can superimpose this monster, who's really a spirit, onto the figure of the Republican soldier. So also the realm of imagination and the role of cinema in opening up a dimension that perhaps, quote unquote, the real world cannot. I think we're also talking about a generation of filmmakers who thought of cinema as really some kind of, a medium that would transform the 20th century. And of course, today we can ask, has it lived up to its potential and its many transformations? So you're absolutely right. What the disastrous consequences when, or sometimes disastrous consequences when imagination is to be tamed or metaphors treated as literal, but also the possibilities that especially the medium of cinema allows the girl to to escape into, because really in the cinema, everything's a lie and they don't really die. And therefore she's able to think that Frankenstein actually is that soldier.
Thank you, Tarkeshwar, and thank you, Ajanta. Any other comments? Okay, if there are no more comments, then we will bring this session to a close. It's a wonderful film that you chose for us to watch and to discuss, Ajanta. Thank you for that. And thank you all for joining in. Good night and have a nice Sunday. Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Peter.
Ajanta.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Nikhila.
everyone.
I was so happy to be able to share the film. And thanks to everybody who logged in. Bye bye. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Good night.
Good
Bye.
night.
See you next